Final Fantasy Secret Lairs are here. Well, not here yet, but we do have the spoilers for all three in Japanese, and so I was able to go through and find prices and do all that jazz. And so we're going to talk about them in today's video because I think they're all pretty freaking cool, and it does sort of seem weird that they do this with these Secret Lairs for crossovers where they load them up with really good cards when they're, I get it. Obviously, they want to make sales, but at the same time, it's like, you guys could do a little bit more in terms of putting some better cards into these more generally speaking, but alas, this is what we're working with. So there's three of them today. We're going to talk about all three. And first up is going to be Secret Lair Grimmoire. Secret Lair Grimmoire has 5 cards, and one of them alone, which you probably saw in the thumbnail, is going to make this a recommend, in my opinion, depending on, of course, the price point of these, but assuming they're in the $40 range, I'm guessing it's going to be a $10 premium, probably. I think it's pretty much a no-brainer. In terms of values used here, I had some people mention in previous Secret Lair videos that, like, when it comes to reprints of cards in Secret Lairs, that I should probably use other Secret Lair comparables as value. So we're trying that out, okay? I'll explain when we get to it what we're looking at here. But here are the 5 cards in this first Secret Lair. We've got Prismatic Ending, which is about a quarter in the cheapest for a non-foil and 50 cents or so for a foil. It's a decent card that I think was pretty strong when it came out, but maybe has been a little bit outclassed. It's still at least somewhat playable, so it's a decent enough inclusion, where it's not just a complete garbage, but it's not really a selling point either. We've got Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt is, again, a very iconic card that has seen so many reprints, but it does have a couple of other existing Secret Lair prints, which is what I'm using for value purposes here. So around $4 for the cheapest Secret Lair variant of this card in non-foil, and around $5 for the cheapest Secret Lair variant of this card in foil. The regular card's like a quarter, but if we're looking at Secret Lair as a base point, I expect this will do really well, especially because it's got Vivi on the card, who's a very popular character, and the artwork is just fantastic. So, across the board, I just think this is going to do well for itself as a Lightning Bolt. But again, it's not a card that is like super hard to get by any stretch of the imagination, despite being very good still. Now, we've got Cyclonic Rift. This is the big hitter for this Secret Lair. I talked about Cyclonic Rift needing a reprint in a recent video. I was more so hoping a larger scale reprint for it in like some kind of reprint set where it would drop the price down. It's really not going to do too much for the price here, I don't think. Cyclonic Rift is like $35 at the cheapest for a non-foil and around $40 for a foil. But as you get into more premium variants of it, the value does go up quite a lot. The one thing potentially working against this is the artwork is not the greatest. It's definitely feels more like someone said Hatsune Miku, some of the art there. I can kind of see that, especially in comparison to some of this other art, but it's still Final Fantasy, it's still a Cyclonic Rift, and it still looks kind of cool. So again, this is basically the cost of the Secret Lair itself. And if you need a Cyclonic Rift or want a card like that, it's pretty much a no-brainer if you can financially afford it to grab this Secret Lair. Unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of people with that same line of thought, and when you take into account the fact that this is a very, very highly desired IP as well, it's just the likelihood of this Secret Lair lasting for a long time and is just low, but it's a very good inclusion, and from a pure product construction standpoint, seeing Cyclonic Rift in here is awesome. Now, we've also got Damn, which has been reprinted a couple times. It used to be worth a bit more. It's still good. It's certainly still playable. It's about $2 for its cheapest non-foil version and around $5 for a foil version. It does have a few other premium variants as well, but it's at least a decent enough inclusion for a playable card, so I'm not going to be too hard on it when we're kind of looking at the overall value here of these Secret Lairs. And finally, we have Heroic Intervention, a very good staple card for green that sees play in pretty much any commander deck that can run it. It is a really strong card that just does a lot and tends to do well for its value every single time it gets reprinted. The cheapest non-foil version is around $11, and the cheapest foil is around $14. We have seen this card get Secret Lair prints. We have seen it get Universes Beyond prints. But this is some really cool artwork featuring a popular character for a playable card, so I'm expecting it to do well as a whole. Now, if we add up the total value of this Secret Lair in non-foil, we're looking at around $52.25 in total value, and we're looking at around $64.50 in total value for foils. both of those are relatively solid. I'm expecting these to be $40 and $50 respectively, because it is a Universes Beyond, probably going to have that price increase on it because of licensing costs and stuff. So the non-foil at $52, versus a $40 price point, it's not the greatest deal, but if it's cards you need and you really like it, I think this is a safe bet. And the foil version, I mean, if you don't mind the pringling, I think the foil version, especially with Cyclonic Rift and Heroic Intervention, will be the best to, aging over time. But again, there are, certainly factors to consider about whether or not you actually, A, like the IP, B, need the cards. But if you do, and one of those things are applicable, this Secret Lair is very easily, for me, a very good, I'm going to give it an A. I just think it's a solid product from top to bottom. It includes 2 good cards and 1 really high-end card in terms of, reprint value. So it's pretty good across the board. I guess we'll have to wait and see if the other 2 follow suit. Secret Lair Weapons is the second of 3 Final Fantasy Secret Lairs, and the first one definitely set a pretty high bar, so I'm a little optimistic here. Let's see how we do. First up, we've got Staff of the Storyteller. This card is actually only been printed once, and it doesn't even have a foil printing at the time of this video, but it's around $6, and it's a very good card. So when you take into consideration a card's there is no other foil printing, that's likely going to add a premium on the Secret Lair foil version in and of itself. But for the purpose of calculating the total value, I obviously don't have a number with which to base it on. Still, it's a decent enough card to be included, and better than if they threw some random janky piece of equipment we've seen reprinted 100 times, so I'm not going to complain too much there. We've got Blade of Selves. This is a $6 card for its non-foil and $7 for its foil. It's a very good card, and with a lot of newer, myriad support and stuff, the card has definitely seen an increase in interest. So I'm glad they're reprinting it here because it was starting to trend upwards. Even if a Secret Lair print doesn't necessarily bring the value down a ton, more copies being accessible on the market may mean that you'd have an opportunity to get this when previously you may not have. So it's decent enough to be included in here, and it's a pretty good card. We're looking at, again, I think about a $40 price point, give or take, so we're trying to take that into consideration here when we're talking about the actual pricing. Man, I hope they don't make these like 50 and 60 or something crazy like that, but I fear they'd still sell out if they did. Next up, we've got Umezawa's Jeet, and that is a popular card that only has a couple prints. For the purpose of this video, I am using its only other Secret Lair print as the value basis here instead of like the base version of the card, specifically because the foil version of the base card is significantly higher because it's old and hard to find. So I think the Secret Lair one is a good price comparison. It's about $10 for the non-foil and around $10 for the foil as well for the Secret Lair. So you're looking at a pretty, even comparison. This is definitely going to be a more in-demand version because it's Final Fantasy, but I think it'll be well over $10 for this card, and it's a good inclusion for a popular card that does have a lot of use. Again, can't complain too much about that. Obviously, the whole theme of this one is equipment, so we're looking at that as the barometer on which to judge these cards. Colossus Hammer is the next one, a very, very strong card, especially in Commander, and I know the new Cloud deck will love it. There is also a Colossus Hammer in the deck, but I think this Secret Lair version is going to be one of the best performers out of here. The non-foil version of Colossus Hammer at its cheapest is around $3, and the foil is around $8, so not terrible, but again, it starts to add up to a decent bit of value in here. And finally, what I would say is the big reprint of this is Sword of Truth and Justice. So this card, much like Cyclonic Rift, is a very valuable card. It's not necessarily in as high demand as Cyclonic Rift, but it's still really good at around $35 for a non-foil and $40 for a foil printing. That is going to significantly bring up the overall value on this Secret Lair, and there's not a single card in here that I would say falls into the bulk category. I mean, Colossus Hammer is not super expensive, but it is very playable, and premium versions of the card have done well so far. So I think this is a pretty solid Secret Lair across the board. It's one of those things that may appeal to less people because the cards are more niche, and if you're not playing equipments, you may not have as much interest in them, but I think from a value perspective, it's pretty good. If we take a look at the full value add-ups here, for the non-foil, it's about $60 in card value, and for the foil, it's around $65 in card value, but that is taking into consideration the fact that Staff of the Storyteller does not currently have a foil printing. With all of that in mind, I would say the same thing I said for the first one. If you absolutely are interested in any of these cards and or need them for your deck, or both, it's a very good purchase. I think you obviously have to take into consideration, the additional costs that we're likely to incur on this product, like I said, because it's licensed, but I mean, spending, getting about $20 to $25 in, value over what you're spending if you're just looking at these comparables, it's certainly not bad. Obviously, it's less generically applicable than the first one that we looked at, but I think overall it's a pretty decent secret lair. So I'm going to give this a grade of A-. I think, from a value perspective, there is the possibility that some of these more expensive cards could drop a little bit just because there's more printings of them now. But I think this should do pretty well for itself. So I'm going ahead A-. I feel pretty confident on for this one. Next up is Secret Lair Game Over, and this is the final of the 3 Secret Lairs. And funny enough, as I've been working on this video throughout the majority of the morning, they did end up posting the English reveals of the Secret Lair, but I've already edited so much of this by the time you're watching it that I'm not going to bother changing it at that point. I've got both the English version of the card and then the Japanese Secret Lair print on there. It is what it is. I'm just going to kind of leave it because we're so far in. But let's talk about the cards themselves here in this Secret Lair. And again, so far so good. I think the first one up we've got is Toxic Deluge. Obviously a very, very good card in any format that it's legal in. It has been printed a good number of times, but still maintains a solid value at around $5 for non-foil, $6 for foil. There are some more premium versions of the card, but generally speaking, it is just a good card across the board. And I'm always happy to see a Toxic Deluge reprint because it's just one of those cards that ideally everyone should be able to have access to. Next up, we've got Temporal Extortion. This card only has one print, and I think it was Planar Chaos. I'm not 100% sure, but the card's on the screen. I think that's what the symbol is. It's definitely one of those sets where you had the color swaps or whatever. So this is a $14 non-foil and a $79 foil. So there is a big discrepancy there in price. Obviously, because it has no other printings and an old foil from an old set is just going to have value. I would imagine that the foil version of this card is going to be cheaper than its OG foil, obviously. But this is a solid card. It's it's an interesting option, I suppose, although I'm not too familiar with the card's application. Still, when you have a big value reprint like that, especially in foil, it is going to add a lot to the foil, but I just wanted to kind of keep in mind the fact that it may end up being more of a, this is the only printing of it, that's why the foil's so expensive instead of anything else. Praetor's Grasp is the next reprint here at around $12 for non-foil. Now, there is a foil version of this card from the base set that it was in, but it is very expensive. The alternate pricing is $19 for the Secret Lair foil. There is already a Secret Lair reprint of this card. I think that's a better comparable because I don't think the Secret Lair is going to go as crazy as the OG foil, just sort of the way that it goes. So we're using that as the price comparison here, and hopefully those who were frustrated by my previous, mathematics on that will be a little bit less so. Day of Judgment is a card that just got reprinted in Foundations, a beautiful Japanese showcase art, and another really cool artwork here. This is about $1 for the non-foil and about $2 for the foil, but it is standard legal, so there could be some additional demand for this because people may want to play it in standard, may want to get multiple copies of the Secret Lair version if you're playing multiple in a deck. I do think that will do some good things for its overall value, just in terms of the price comparison. And finally, we've got Star of Extinction. This card is not worth much. It's $1 for the non-foil and $1.25 for the foil, but it's got beautiful artwork featuring Sephiroth. It will probably, right off the bat, end up being the most expensive version of the card because of the art. Not exactly the greatest reprint here, but it's not terrible either. It's just sort of one of those things where you take the good with the bad, right? So let's do a little overall recap here for this Secret Lair as well. If we were to take all of the non-foil cards at their lowest possible value, we're looking at about $33 in total value, which is not great, but the foil, we're looking at around $107.25, which is significantly better, but is also very top-heavy and a little misleading because of the price of Temporal Extortion's foil. I don't necessarily think that it's a great indicator of value, but that's what we're working with in terms of the numbers right now. So if I had to give this one a grade, I'd probably give it a little bit closer to a B. I do think that I really want to take into consideration that Temporal Extortion being an $80 foil is very much because it doesn't have any other prints and it's old versus an indicative idea of what you're getting from value as a whole with this product. This one I'm not too thrilled about. It's cool. It's got some cool cards. It's not a terrible product by any stretch, but it's just not doing anything for me. Personally, I still understand and appreciate that they at least put some decently valued cards in, which is better than the alternative of just filling it with junk. So basically, to recap, at the time I'm done with recording this, we do have confirmation on the pricing for these now, so they are actually not going to be marked up at all, which is shocking to me, but it's very good news. So we're looking at $30 per for the regular or $40 for the foils, and there will in fact be a bundle which will allow you to get one of each in foil and non-foil in English for $200. Same deal for Japanese. If you want one of each, it's $200. That makes these really strong as a whole because they're not rising in price and you're getting pretty good value for each of them. The bad news is, though, of course, as this does go up on June 9th for sale, there is going to likely be a ton of people going after this, and I would definitely say, you know, don't overpay like crazy on these, but also be prepared to, like, wait in a queue for a little while if you end up deciding you want to go in on these, because I do think there's going to be a lot of demand, both because of the IP and because the cards inside are actually pretty good. It's just unfortunately the nature of Secret Lairs right now. But I have to say, I recommend all three of these if you can get them at the retail price they're intended to be at. I'm probably going to try to get at least 2 of them. We'll see how it goes. But let me know what you guys think of the Secret Lairs. Be sure to leave a comment down below and just kind of let me know your thoughts on the overall, you know, the 3 of them, which one you like best, and if you're planning on getting any. And if you guys enjoy this type of format for the video, I tried something a little different here with my Secret Lair breakdown, but hopefully it works well enough for everybody. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.